right. I think we're live.
So
Awesome. Well, welcome everyone to Evergreen Pathways. I'm excited to be here with Martin DesRosiers. It should be a really fun conversation. But just maybe to kind of tee things up, I'm Ramsey. I co-founded Evergreen 8 years ago now, and we've partnered with over 100 MSPs since we got started. And one of the big reason that we created Pathways was, we've just been fortunate enough to partner with really some of the best leaders and business builders in the MSP industry, and they've all taken these different pathways to partnering with us at Evergreen. And we just felt like we really haven't told enough of the stories of some of the amazing people doing great things, across our group of companies. So, one of the first people that came to mind when we came up with this concept was Martin. And I got to know Martin many years ago before we ended up partnering with Nucleus, the MSP he was running. So really excited for the conversation today, Martin, and just to hear your story. But maybe we start there, and if folks have questions, along the way, feel free to jump in the comments, and we'll try to answer them either during or after the show. But maybe Martin, it'd be great if you could kind of introduce yourself to the audience and tell a little bit about your story, and we'll go from there.
sounds good. Yeah, thanks for having me today. I've been in the MSP industry for about 20 years, but in the tech industry, I think about 25 years. So, I started off as a help desk tech, my career working internal IT. Later started an MSP in 2006. Just I was working for the federal government and was just bored, and I was like, I needed a challenge. And so that small MSP was acquired in 2009 by a small MSP in Vancouver. That MSP grew, went national, did a couple mergers. I left there to join another IT company in Vancouver, and they wanted to build a managed services division. So, that was a really unique opportunity to build a managed services practice within an IT business that wasn't doing managed services. And then in 2012, actually, I think it was 2013, I had an opportunity to join Nucleus. So, joined Nucleus, I think, as employee number 12. I was offered equity to join the company based on hitting certain milestones and certain growth targets. And so we grew that business from just under 2 million revenue to 20 million in revenue when I left to join Lyra. So I know I kind of speed run that story, but in 2021, that's when I think we met Ramsey. So.
Yeah, exactly. Want to unpack that. Maybe starting when you joined Nucleus, $2 million MSP. Were you brought in to run the company, or did you start out, doing a certain role in the company, and how did it kind of evolve into you really leading the company?
Yeah, good question. I think, at the time, my title was actually VP of strategy. And so we were a 3-person management team. It was the founder, Gary, it was Carl, our COO, and myself. And so, at the time, it was kind of like I was chief cook and bottle washer just based on my experience, right? So, but realistically, I was accountable for business development, sales, marketing, growth, customer success. Like, one of the first things Gary did at the time was, he was essentially the CSM for all the accounts at Nucleus. And at the time, I think we had, maybe 20, 30 clients. And so the first step was transitioning those relationships. So in the early days, it was honestly everything. Like, how do we grow this business? Based on my experience at, the different companies in Vancouver that I was a part of. Then over time, I moved into the president seat, and then eventually to the CEO seat, where Gary kind of took more of a chairman kind of behind the scenes role. So
yeah. What were I think there are a lot of business owners that were like in Gary's shoes that never really get the next, get succession right and get a successor in the business. What do you think were the keys to success there in you know, being able to, take you from like a VP role to like really empowering you to run the company.
I think a lot of it honestly was trust. You got to build trust and proof that you can actually deliver. And for me personally, just based on my experience, I saw such a big opportunity at Nucleus. Like they were living under a rock in Vancouver. I'd never heard about them, but when I first met the team and I got a tour of the office, right away I knew this was something special. And at the time, like the external facing brand, the website, they were doing no marketing. It was 100% referral based business. Um, and so I just knew that my experience and my skills, I could really help grow this business. And so I think it was just a matter of being obsessed about, truthfully being the best at what we do, building an amazing culture. That was like number one for me. I was like, there's a bunch of great people. They're all friends. They all hang out outside of work. And I wanted to be a part of that. And so I think it was just doubling down on the people first obsession. Like, how do we really scale this team that really cares so much about their customers? And so over time, it was really just, I think, slowly Gary let go of certain things. And it was from actually just delivering and growing and actually, building this company. So,
Yeah. Love it, love it. And did you feel like I'm sure there was a little bit of both, but did you feel like you were pushing Gary for more, or did you feel like he was kind of trying to pull you up into running the business day to day?
no, it was me more. Truthfully, I'm more of a squeaky wheel, challenge the status quo kind of guy. So I'm
Yeah,
always pushing the boundaries of like, we can do more, we can do better, let's do this differently. And so that's just the way I'm wired. And so I think it was more me just really trying to, treat the business like I started Nucleus. As
yeah,
much as I was one of four owners, it was like, you know what? I just want the best for this company. I want the best for the team. I want to grow. I truthfully want to be the best MSP in Canada at the time. That was the mindset we had. And so I think it was one of those like, I'm slowly prying the baton out of Gary's hands, if you will.
yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah.
I think there's a lesson in that around because succession and the next generation of leadership in a founder-owned business is really tough. And I just think there's a lesson in the right. Clearly, Gary got it right with you and Nucleus. You've got it right with Jennifer, which we'll get into later. But I just think there's something around like the right person is gonna kind of is going to push you there, and it's actually going to feel like less of a pull.
Most
A
definitely.
lot of
Yeah.
business owners really feel like they're trying to pull it out of someone, and sometimes that might not be the right person to run the business if that's what you're having to do.
Agreed.
So, um, and then obviously 10x growth is pretty epic. Like what were the key points along the way? Uh, Maybe if there were points where you felt like you're getting stuck and you had a real breakthrough um, on that on
Yeah.
that journey.
I get asked this question probably the most. Like, tell us about Nucleus. How did you go from, and everybody wants the like one button to push. And
Yeah,
the reality is, like, we all know this, right? It's not one button. I think if I look back and kind of, if I can think of like the 3 to 5 bullets or what are the key things that, I would do again with every MSP, I'll go back to just, people and culture. Like at the end of the day, if you do not have a strong team, it's hard to really deliver, especially in the managed services world. And so I think just treating your people right, building a true culture where you value people, you create career paths, create different opportunities. That's really powerful, and even to this day, like Nucleus has employee number 1 and 2 still there. The average tenure is very high. So I think the people as like the foundation was critical. I think also being obsessed about the customer. I took a lot of inspiration from Steve Jobs. Just about everything Apple did was like client experience backwards, from opening a box to opening a wrapper, like just the little details, like every aspect of that experience. And that I found that fascinating, that you can really apply that concept to an older kind of business like IT services. And so we had so many little things that will create like a wow customer experience, from our welcome package, to delivering candies the first week that a customer went live, to, when a new team member started, they had a swag pack, and we went the extra mile literally with everything we did, not just support, but sales, account management, procurement, like literally everything that we did that touched a customer or team member, we wanted to make it memorable. So I think just having that obsession about the experience was super important. And then ultimately the brand. I think for me, one of my superpowers at the time was just having experience around storytelling and brand, and the power of how you can tell a story and capture an audience. And so, one of the first things I did was reboot the brand. Change the logo, the website, really reboot the go-to-market motion. And years ago, Nucleus, like I think it was like 7 years ago, we had the talk track about true technology partner. We stopped talking about fixing computers and managing servers. Like we were very different in the market at the time. So I think we were early with this like true technology advisor concept, because at the time everybody else was talking about, we'll support your computers, we will manage your servers, we'll keep the lights on. It's like those are table stakes things. And so I think we early on gravitated towards being that true technology partner, which I think made a huge difference for us.
Yeah, I remember supercharge your business was like a big part of the pitch. Like, and this is when when we were first getting introduced, like on our first phone call, you were kind of telling us the Nucleus story, and it really stood out then. And I think it's just increased in importance in the industry for sure. Maybe talk to me a little bit about the decision to sell the business, the decision to partner with Evergreen and Lyra, and then your role as a regional CEO, and maybe that transition and the transition to Jennifer.
I think thinking back, it feels like yesterday, but it also feels like 10 years ago. And it was 2021, right? I think it was like the tail end of the pandemic. I vividly remember, I think it was probably a, slow drip email campaign or something, that I kind of bid on at the time. And, we always had this thing, I think it's actually part of the old Nucleus logo, but like everything starts with a conversation, right? And that's how we approach like new clients. Like, let's just have a conversation about what you need. And I think at the time I was like, let's just have a conversation. We were getting, so many emails, and, I think just the awards we were winning, the presence that we had, like we had some really good traction and momentum. And I think with that, everybody was knocking on our door to say, like, can we roll you up? Can we acquire you? And there's all these different, I think, opportunities and options at the time. And I think with Evergreen, for us, it was like the first one that was like, oh, this almost sounds like too good to be true, right? You have all these are all the benefits of joining the Evergreen family. It's checking all the boxes. And so like, okay, let's have another conversation. Let's go a little bit further. And so I think, it was a long process. I don't know if you remember that. I think it started in like January and we closed in July. So it was definitely like a drawn out process, but at the end of the day, it was never, I do remember being, because I was a CEO for 2 years after the sale. I was waiting for like, okay, what's going to change? Is something drastically gonna change? But honestly, it was one of those things that like month over month, I was like, wow, this is awesome. Like everything went as well as we could have expected, right? We didn't, fire a bunch of people. We didn't change our brand. We didn't lose any momentum. If anything, we accelerated momentum. And I think the numbers at Nucleus tell that story post acquisition. Like it was like that snowball effect, right? Like it was just moving a lot faster just based on having access to the ecosystem, the people, the knowledge network. So overall, I think the process for us was awesome, right? Nobody lost their job. We kept our brand. Everybody's still like there at Nucleus to this day. And the business has grown tremendously since we sold, right?
No, I remember the long process, and it's a big deal when these are big decisions, right? You spend a long time building a company, and it's doing well, and so your people are always weighing whether it's the right time. Gary went on that journey too, so I remember that, but just super glad that we made it happen. And I think that the growth since then has been incredible. And like just um, to get to that scale, like growth at scale is like a really tough thing to do in this industry, and Nucleus is crack the code on that. Maybe talk about succession and Jennifer and how you went about that.
Yeah.
And your,
I mean, for me, a lot of it was personal initially because I was like coming up on my 10 years at Nucleus, right? And it was like this milestone where I was like, okay, we've spent 10 years in this company. Really just felt like in the trenches when we were 12 people, single little office in Gastown to 80 plus people across Canada. And, we peaked when we had 3 offices in Canada, pre-pandemic, and obviously pandemic changed a lot of that remote work kind of hybrid environment. So kind of lived through a lot of different situations over the years, right? And then eventually I was just like, I think I'm looking for a new challenge. For me, I was like, okay, I wanted to hit that kind of 10x. We sold the business. I wasn't super motivated to be like, okay, we've hit 20 million, let's do 40 million. That wasn't inspiring to me for some reason. And so, I remember just kind of putting my hand up at the time, talking to Elliot, and this was pre kind of all MSPs folding under Lyra, but there's these, we had a bunch of Canadian businesses and there was an opportunity to kind of, join Lyra. And so that sounded exciting, and that was a new challenge, right? Different layer. Instead of being a hands-on CEO, I'd be more kind of an advisor, kind of co-pilot for other CEOs. I thought that was pretty cool. And so at the time, 2 years prior, we brought on Jen as our COO. And so, she was within the business for the previous 2 years, did a lot of great things. And it was just a logical, thing to pass the baton to Jen. I think she just has the focus, the resiliency, the grit. She has a similar approach and customer obsession, people obsession. Those are attributes definitely I was looking for, and it's been a great transition. Once since stepping up to Lyra, but also handing the baton to Jen. So
yeah, 100%. And the regional CEO role at Lyra is really unique. We've got a portfolio of about 100 MSPs, $1 billion of revenue, and we only have 7 regional CEOs. So all the businesses, roll through Martin and 6 other folks. And it's been really cool. All those people have run individual MSPs for us. And I think it's just a really powerful kind of structure because, I feel like you get to work with CEOs of other MSPs having been in their shoes and run a business successfully. And that's been so foundational to, I think, the whole thing working, is like the credibility that you and the other regionals have with the leaders that you work with. Maybe let's shift a little bit to like where the industry's going, and obviously AI. You've been spending a lot of time thinking about that, and we've got some pretty interesting things cooking in the Lyra portfolio around AI initiatives, some of which are more incremental, and then some of which are more radical around some MSPs really rethinking how they're going to operate from first principles. So maybe give me your maybe high level view on how AI is going to impact the MSP industry and our businesses and the businesses you work with.
Yeah, I think it's as transformational as the whole .com boom, the whole internet era, and we're at the infancy in terms of where things are at. I think I saw something yesterday from the CEO of Airbnb. He was talking about how like AI chatbots and the way we interface with AI is like the MS-DOS stage of operating systems. And I'm like, wow, that's actually a really good way of putting it. Like the potential and where we're going is it's hard to wrap our minds around where this is going to go. I think right now, what I see and what I, just spending a lot of time kind of marinating in the AI automation layer is, I think of two distinct layers. One is specifically on the MSP operations, how it delivers service to its customers, how it improves the experience, how it, can make things more efficient, it can increase output. I think the key thing though is just no matter what we do with AI and automation as an MSP, I think we cannot compromise the customer experience. I think I've seen some mistakes be made where, it's awesome, it's a shiny object, let's go enable it, let's turn it on, but it actually makes the customer experience worse. And so if anything, I think it needs to improve the customer experience. And so that's kind of what I've been talking to some of the MSPs about. It's just like that has to be a part of the decision tree. Like, is this going to make things better, or is it better for us but worse for the client? If so, we probably shouldn't enable it, right? So I think there's the AI operational layer. I've talked about this a few times and kind of in some blog posts, but I think the future MSP tech, like there's going to be no tiers, I think, in the future. Historically it's been like tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. The reality is AI makes everybody a tier 3. With just access to knowledge, access to information. Using the old nucleus term, it is really like a supercharger for an individual. It's going to give every single person more horsepower. So I think there's the internal operational layer and how it's going to impact the business, but I also think obviously the customer, right? How is the customer taking advantage of AI? And I think there's phases to that. I think there's, the low-hanging fruit, which I think, I can't remember who said this, but like the watermelons on the ground, like there's literally opportunities in there. You just walk over and pick these things up, like secure AI, compliance, policies, just getting people using AI within your business or within your customers' environments. I think is like step one, because everybody wants to get to step 2, step 3, which I see as the greenfield opportunity for MSPs, which is, business process automation. Like, how do we streamline some of the things in your business using the tools that are available? We have a couple of businesses at Lara that, their elevator pitch is, we'll save your business 20 hours a month of AI. That's a powerful statement. Like, which business wouldn't want to explore that a little bit further, right? So I think the future looking MSP, like the consultants are going to look a little bit different. The techs are going to look a bit different. I think consultants are going to have more business analysis skills, being able to go into a business and kind of unpack how things are flowing within a business. And then ultimately, I think, one thing to keep in mind is, if we're not talking to our customers about AI, someone else definitely is. And I think the key thing is how do we accelerate that gap, where right now I think most businesses see MSPs as kind of keeping the lights on, the care and feeding of the environment. And so if anything, that emphasizes the need to become that true technology partner, right? That strategic advisor. And so I think there's a bit of an upskilling gap. I think there's, opportunities to add different roles and different people. But to me, that's like the biggest opportunity is right now is getting to that place where you can work with the business to really streamline their operations with AI and technology.
Totally. Yeah. And maybe talk about like a couple examples there. I think we were talking about some of the stuff that Durand is doing.
Yep.
Around, automating processes for customers. I think that it really makes it tangible when you think about it that way. And we have a few companies that I think are doing this really well. I think it is kind of a window into the future.
Yeah, I can think of 2 like immediate examples. Well, I can think of more than 2, but the ones that stand out to me. On the internal side, we have a business that has a customer, a very large nonprofit customer. They built an automation with AI that saves them, 400 to 500 tickets a year. And they looked over the last 10 years of this customer, and there's such a large customer that does a lot of new employee ads, password resets, user decommissions. And so it's very like repetitive tasks that you could technically automate. And so they've done that now with a single customer, single example. And so, there's 200 other customers to look at in terms of opportunities to do things like that.
Right.
When it comes to the customer facing side, yes, we have a business that has, I think they're in financial services. It was one of their customers. They have someone that does something every single month with their CRM and reporting. And I want to say it takes them 4 hours a week to produce this report. And they've been doing this for years. And so, through like a QBR, the customer was like, or I don't know if it was Durand or the customer, but we landed on, hey, is this something we can use AI and automation for? And ultimately, they built an agent in Copilot that compiles all the information, produces the report, and now they never have to do that manually again. And so that, again, just one example of one customer, one process. And to the customer, they're like, we need to do more. What else can we do? And so now it's spawning all these opportunities to do more for the customer.
I think it's just like so many things. You said it starts with a conversation when you're thinking about selling Nucleus. It starts with a conversation, that Duran was having about uncovering these manual processes. I think that's just so powerful. That's really interesting. And I think it's a huge opportunity. I think as it relates to AI in the MSP space, in most industries, AI is being positioned as this opportunity for internal efficiency. I think like what we have an opportunity to do in the MSP spaces, there's also this revenue and growth opportunity where we can help bring this to bear for customers, because this is squarely in our wheelhouse. It's technology. And so, I just feel like the opportunity is ours to go grab.
I agree. And I think the key thing is, I don't know, in elementary school, they had the show and tell days, and I think AI and automation is very similar, where you have to show customers how it works. Because right now, I think a lot of people think it's a fad or think it's going away. But the reality is, I don't think, AI anywhere. I think it's really going to transform so many different industries. And so the best place to start is on yourself, right? Within the MSP, what can you automate? What can you streamline? And then show that to your customer, right? And that's going to create different conversations. That's going to have people thinking about things differently. Because it's all magic right now, right? It feels like it's all, but until you show someone what it can do and how it runs on its own, people are like, wow, this is amazing. And right away they start thinking about things that they should be doing now. And it just gets the creative juices flowing. So to your point, I think it's really just having that conversation with your customer and showing them some examples. And then it's just, the conversation continues.
Yeah. I mean, I think about it in my own day, we all have like reports we'd love to automate.
Exactly.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, great. This has been a super fun conversation. Maybe, I think if folks want to hear more from you, I think the MSP CEO newsletter that you write is a great follow. I read all the posts. How do you come up with like what to talk about there?
Great question. I mean, I'm trying to hold myself accountable to post every 2 weeks. So sometimes it's thought leadership. I got one queued up, actually. I like to feature people in the industry as well. So I think we gotta get you on there, Ramsey. We gotta go for lunch one day. I do a meet series where it's just people in the industry, and I like to have fun with it. So
yeah, no, it's great. Always awesome insights that I always get from those. Really thought-provoking stuff. So you can just type in msp.ceo, and I think it routes.
That's it. It goes to LinkedIn. That's right.
That's right. And then the last thing before we jump off here, we're doing our second annual Elevate conference in the U.S. In Chicago in April. And really what we're trying to do with that event is like is showcase people like Martin and bring real tangible things that people are actually doing in their business that are driving value. And so we're not trying to, we're very intentional about like no sales pitches. There's no vendors at the conference. We really just want business owners and leaders focused on tangible levers for value creation. We're trying to make the conference really purely focused on that. So check it out and register, and we'd love to see you there. But Martin, really appreciate the time today. Fun conversation.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.